Sine and cosine are two trigonometry functions that take an angle as an input and output a value between 1 and -1. These values are generated from a unit circle, which is thus a circle with a radius of 1. At angle 0, the output of sine is 0, and we continue to increase until we reach 1 at 90 degrees. This is the highest value that sine reaches, and it's called amplitude. Then we start decreasing until we reach 0 at 180 degrees. We keep decreasing until we reach -1 at 270 degrees, and this is the lowest value that sine reaches. We then start increasing again until we reach 0 at 360 degrees. After reaching 360, we continue 361, 362, and so on until we reach 1 or amplitude again at 360 plus 90. Then we decrease to 0 at 360 plus 180. We continue decreasing to -1 at 360 plus 270. And we go up to 0 again at 720. And we continue in the same way to infinity. We can increase or decrease the amplitude by multiplying the sine result by a value. And we can increase or decrease the wavelength by multiplying the parameter of sine by a value. The wavelength is the distance at which the wave repeats, or the frequency of the wave. And we can move the wave up or down by adding a value to the result of sine. For these values to be correct, the angle must be in radians. Let's convert to radians and see how the cosine is also generated. This time, at angle 0, the cosine starts from 1 or amplitude. Then we start decreasing until we reach 0 at pi divided by 2. We continue decreasing until we reach -1 at pi. We go back to 0 at 3 pi divided by 2. And then we go back to 1 at 2 pi. And we continue in the same way to infinity. As we saw before, we can increase or decrease the amplitude by multiplying the cosine result by a value. And we can change the wavelength by multiplying the parameter inside the cosine function. And we can move the wave up or down by adding a value to the result of the cosine. Let's see how we can apply this stuff. Let's create three variables. The first one is amplitude, which will control the distance. The second one is speed, which will control the frequency or the wavelength of the wave. The third one is time, a variable that increases over time and will serve as the angle for the sine. We will calculate the result of sine using time times speed as an input, and then multiply the result by the amplitude. We will multiply the result by a direction, where the x component is 0 and the y component is 1 in this case, and assign the result to the position. This circle will move between 1 and -1. If we increase the amplitude, we increase the distance. Or we can decrease. And we can change the speed to change the speed or the wavelength. Let's add more objects, but this time we will change their direction. We can also assign the result of sine to the scale. The scale will change between 1 and -1. We can pick object and change their speed and amplitude. We can iterate through our object and give them a random speed and amplitude. We can move object in a wave motion if we assign the time in the x component and the sine result in the y component. And as we saw before, we can manipulate the speed and the amplitude. We can apply the same concepts to 3D as well.